The biggest PUBG event of the year is about to start. So let's have a look at all the teams that are playing, what they're playing for, and how it's going to go down. My name's Kobo, I'm coach for Team Ascend, and I'll tell you everything you need to know about PGC 2023. Let's go. So what we have to talk about is who's going to PGC, how did they get there, maybe some of the drama that happened in the qualifiers. Then I'll quickly explain the format and give a few of my own opinions and expectations for the tournament. The PUBG Global Championship 2023 happens in Bangkok, Thailand from the 18th of November to the 3rd of December. Players will be competing for over $2 million in prize pool, depending on how much revenue share amounts to. It's very likely with how good the skins are that we get up to something about 3 million, maybe even close towards the $4 million. So when we look at these 32 teams, we very quickly see that there is different ways they got to the tournament. And the first group of teams I want to talk about is the top left here. That's the PGS points teams. These teams performed really well throughout the year in international events, in the PGS events, well, PGS 1 and 2, and secured themselves a slot for PGC. Now, funnily enough, 3 out of these 4 teams also won the last regional tournament in their region. So they've all 3 been insane regionally and internationally, and are definitely the biggest hitters coming into the tournament. The regions are not quite as simple as they are on this graphic, especially the APAC and ASIA regions are much more split up, and some of the regions are actually so small, they only get 1 PGC slot. That can lead to very interesting developments. For example, in Taiwan, Gex or Savage Men is what they're now called, have basically been going to every international in the last few years and have now been beaten out by PMA because there was only 1 slot and they got second. And then in APAC, there is some really spicy stuff going on in the qualifiers. Now, before we talk about what happened, you have to understand the situation. Before this Challenger Rumble, EXO is 180 points ahead of Fury. Why does this matter? Well, in game 17 of this qualifier, Fury is currently in first, with EXO in second. Even though Fury is winning the tournament, they won't qualify to PGC with EXO Clan in second place. They need EXO to go down into third place to then win the tiebreaker in PGC points and go to PGC. In match 17, EXO is already dead, so Fury decides they need From the Future to pass EXO on the leaderboard, otherwise they can't go to PGC. No matter how many points they get themselves, they need EXO to go down into third. What does Fury do? They find FTF on the map, and they intentionally give them the kills.
And they feed From the Future, collect all 3 kills.
That's something that's pretty unheard of in PUBG esports, and there's a lot of controversial opinions about whether that is allowed or should be allowed or is punishable. The rules say you're only allowed to play to your best ability. You're not allowed to play worse than you possibly could. But obviously people can argue this is the best thing Fury can do in their own ability. So very controversial. You can let me know what you think in the comments. The PUBG community is a little bit torn on that one. But what comes next is even crazier. FTF don't only pass EXO, they also go on to win the last game of the tournament. And they push themselves not only past EXO like Fury had planned, but also past Fury. And now all of a sudden, Fury getting second place only isn't enough anymore for them to go. Them feeding points over to From the Future actually went to bite them in the back. You can call it karma, you can call it unfortunate, but I've definitely never seen anything like it. Now let's look at the other regions and see who's going to PGC. For the Americas, it's obviously the Sonics, and then it is both the PAS 1 winner, Falcons, and the PAS 2 winner, Friendly Fire, who've just been picked up by Space Station Gaming, and we have Luminosity and Legacy rounding out the 5 teams. For EMEA, it's a bit of a weird story, where it's Foot and FaZe Clan, who have consistently performed throughout the year. Ascend as well, very consistent, just slightly below that. And then while Question Mark only picked it up towards the second half of the year, even doing really well at PGS2, Howl and Exalt have really struggled towards the end of the year, with those 2 teams being 14th and 16th in the recent PEC fall. Bit of a strange look coming in for Europe. When we look at Vietnam, it's Genius Esports and Cerberus Esports, where Cerberus Esports has been one of the top performing teams internationally as well. Genius Esports was just barely missing out on the PGS1 qualification, and the Expendables not making it this time. Thailand had 13-5 win their last regional event, with Daytrade and Purple Mood rounding it out, whereas APAC, Taiwan, and Japan are only sending one team each. Asia is pretty interesting, as there's been lots and lots of roster changes, especially in China. So 4AM acquired 2 of the new Happy players after PGS1. Pero has gotten a new IGL in summer. And then Tianba has very recently kicked Longsker, one of their top performers internationally, according to some rumors, because he was trying out for 17 Gaming. Shengyi Jinlong is the wildcard team that we haven't really heard too much about. In Korea, Danawa has been dominating, with Genji consistently keeping up the pace. And then Veronica 7, D+ Kia, and Asla Pentagram have also performed consistently, getting them to PGC. All right, now we know the teams that are playing, how they got there. Let's have a look at the format. Let's look how the groups are going to go down. And then the 32 teams are going to get divided into 2 groups, A and B. And they're going to play a best of 12 each. So 2 days of 6 games in each group. The top 8 of each group advance to the winners bracket. The bottom 8 of each group advance to the losers bracket. If you're in the winners bracket, all you need is one more top 8 and you're going straight to the grand finals. If you're in the losers bracket, you need to get a top 8 or you're out of the tournament. If you do get top 8 in the losers bracket, you play against the bottom 8 teams of that winners bracket. So essentially, the winners bracket gives you 2 chances to make it to the grand finals. If you're in the losers bracket, you need top 8 twice in a row. That format is pretty similar to last year's PGC, but the main change is that the grand survival with the winner chicken dinner format has been removed, and those 4 finalist slots are added to the last chance stage. That's going to be something the players are very happy about, as the winner chicken dinner format was not very well received from the player side, at least, because it is so uncompetitive, even though it might be one of the most dramatically exciting formats in PUBG. So it should be pretty clear at this point that groups really matter. Upper bracket is a significant advantage, not only mentally, but also just having 2 chances at a top 8 is a whole lot easier than having to get top 8 twice in a row. So let's have a look at these groups and see what we might expect from them. PUBG uses a pretty elaborate system to sort the teams in those 2 groups based on their performance in their own region. The goal of this is not to have all the teams with high standings in their own region in the same group. That is hoping to achieve balanced group strength between Group A and B. There's always conversation about which group is stronger, but I think that's pretty impossible to say. If you just have a look at Group A, you have some teams like the Sonics who've done really well internationally, but have also made a roster change recently and then didn't look very convincing regionally. The opposite of that could be Ascend, who have done really well at PGS1, but have done really average in the Europe region. Then you have teams like Food Esports, who looked super consistent and very strong in the EMEA region, but the last time any of their players qualified for an international was PGC 2022, and only half of their team on 2 different rosters made it there. So really, really hard to say how some of these teams are going to perform. You could say the same about almost any team on this list. There's really only a handful of teams who've consistently done well internationally, and those are especially those 4 teams in the top left corner of their group, and then maybe there's a few exceptions here or there. One thing we have to talk about is Lootspots. There are 32 teams coming out of 9 different regions, and they might all have their loot spots in their own regions, but now they're all getting mixed together into the same lobby, and all of a sudden, you have all of these clashes. Everything you say about loot spots before the tournament starts, you really have to take with a grain of salt. Every team would like their respective loot spot, but a lot of teams will shy away from fighting for it. Hot dropping is generally detrimental for your performance, so a lot of teams won't go for it in the tournament games. They'll try to fight for the spot in scrims maybe, and they'll try to pretend like they would never leave. And then when the real tournament games get around, a lot of teams will leave. When I say most teams, I do mean that. We've had some very iconic moments with hot drops. 4AM, VP, Danwa in the apartments. We've had DA throw away an entire tournament for hot dropping one compound. But I think it's fair to say that most teams like to avoid them at all costs. First, you have to know that flipped logos here means this is an alternate loot drop that a team will go for when they can't reach their normal loot spot. So what you notice when you start flipping through these loot maps is that it might matter more in groups where the teams around you loot than who the teams around you are. So for example, Danawa here is contested by Tianba on Miramar. They are contested by Cerberus on Erangel, and they're sort of contested by Pero on Vikendi. That's not a fun time when you really want to get that top 8. Similar things for Cerberus, who contest on 2 maps, and Tianba on 3 maps. And then the complete opposite is true for the Sonics, who, because they aren't in the lobby with 17 Gaming, get to loot Pachinko Picado. Pero, not in the same group as Twiz, get to loot Power Grid and the apartments. Since we don't play in Group B, I didn't make these loot maps myself. These are by Pogue, analyst for Team Howl. Shout out to him. I have simplified these a tiny bit to make them easier to look at. If you want the full versions, his Twitter or Deskin is where you should find them. Both Twisted Minds and 17 Gaming completely uncontested in their loot spots, and very strong loot spots at that, which, considering how good these teams already are, should almost guarantee them into the upper bracket and possibly into the finals from there. And then on the other hand, you have a team like Foot Esports, who's contested in 3 of their 4 drop locations by teams like New Happy and Genji as well, which, if those hot drops really happen, could hamper them a bit. But I'm confident that Foot is a team that can play out of any spot of the map, so they're probably not going to go for these fights. And then you can also see that Question Mark is having a pretty good time with their loot spots, partly because Ascend is in Group A. Now, before everybody starts complaining about me talking about the EMEA region all the time, I'm just so much more qualified to talk about that. I just have so much more knowledge about how the EMEA teams play compared to any of the Asian regions, for example. I just have way more valuable insights to give there. We're pretty happy that Foot and Question Mark are not in our lobby. And that's not only because Question Mark loots Primorsk and we want to loot that, it's also because they play a lot of edge. And we like playing on edge. And we constantly, in EMEA, we constantly have to worry about Foot rolling up behind us and looking for a fight. Or about Question Mark already set up somewhere to try and hold us out of the zone. So them not being in our group is a benefit for us, but also for them. To sum that whole groups and loot spots conversation up, I think this A and B system has way more impact than a 3 or 4 group system where groups get matched every day. Because we'll only be playing against 15 teams until we're in the upper or lower bracket. Whereas if you have 4 groups, you'll be mixing way more. You'll be on an overall leaderboard. You'll be mixing. You could have 4 groups of 8, and you could change after every single day. And that will lead to a much harder situation for the teams. They have to get used to way more. But on the same time, it would maybe reduce a little bit of the randomness that comes in with these 2 solidified groups. Someone also made the point to me that it's a little bit more refreshing for a viewer to have the different groups. But there is a downside to this group system where you switch all the time. That we've seen in the PGSs this year. That downside is, if you're competing for a loot spot, for example, Sonics, they want Pachinki, 17, they want Pachinki. Sonics plays on the first day. Sonics can get enough points on the first day to guarantee a top 8. And then they can do whatever they want on the second day, where 17 haven't even had a chance to get points yet. It's a little bit of a tactical advantage in that sense. So both of their formats have their ups and downs for sure. All right, to close things out, let's quickly talk about what you should be doing during this PGC. If you buy the esports skins, not only do you get yourself a sick bundle of skins, 25% also goes straight into the prize pool. On top of that, you get voting coupons. Those voting coupons you can use in the Pick'em challenge to gain yourself esports points and to win more of these esports skins. Here's how it works. Important side fact, you can get yourself 1 free coupon for playing the game for 30 minutes, and you can get yourself 50,000 free esports points for watching the stream. In the Pick'em challenge, you can pick 1 team per coupon you have, and if that team reaches the top 4 in the grand final, you will get 300,000 esports points. So even though it's called Pick the Winner, you want to pick someone that gets top 4. Then on top of that, for completely free, no coupons involved, there is the team face-off. Here you're picking the team that you think will place higher, and you get a payout in esports points depending on how good the odds are. So if a team has a lot of fans, like 17 Gaming, voting on Twisted Minds against them is going to give you more esports points if your prediction is correct. Now, I've already talked about who the favorites are for this event for me. I think it is Danoa, Twisted Minds, 17. Those would be my top 3 picks. But the one main tip I have for you is the obvious one. Look at the top left. 26 days until you get to pick. So the time of filming, there is 26 days for you to pick your winners and your team face-offs. I am currently 27 days away from the grand finals. What this means is half of the teams will have been eliminated when you have to make your picks. You can wait all the way until the last day before the finals to make your picks, which is going to make your predictions and your team face-offs a whole lot easier. Whew. All right. That was hopefully everything you needed to know about PGC 2023 in about 15 minutes. I'm done. I feel like you can hear me slurring my words there at the end a little bit. It's been a long day. It's been a lot of work for this video, so I hope you guys enjoyed it. If there's anything you're not sure about, drop it in the comments. I'm sure people will help you out. And if you enjoy this kind of content, you can always help me out by using my creator code, or you can now become a member on YouTube. That is all very greatly appreciated. Links to my credit code and everything will be in the description. And I'm now going to go pack my bags and make my way to PGC. See you guys around.